Welcome back. This is a new episode, a new series. It's called The Rise and Fall of Drill Rappers. And today we're going to be studying the life and times and the rise and fall of a rapper from a gang called Bside, called KK. I just like to let everyone know that this series is not about exposing, but it's more like raising awareness of where this drill life will take you in the end. And I want everyone to know that some of these young men that are in prison are victims themselves. And I know it sounds crazy to call a perpetrator a victim, but a lot of us, we're victim to our circumstance, we're victim to our mindset, and we're victims to our environment. So with all that being said, we're going to go into the case of KK. It says men jailed for murdering Barking music producer Dean Pascal Moste in broad daylight attack. K. Stewart, 18 of Hudston Road, New Cross, and Devon Pussy, 20 of Knaphill Road, Bellingham, were sentenced on Thursday, having been found guilty earlier this month of murdering Dean Pascal Modesty. Stewart was jailed for 17 years while Pussy was jailed for 20. The Old Bailey heard how Dean, 21, died after being attacked in Mottingham, South East London at 3:45 on February the 24th. He had travelled to the area with two friends and went to Lambscoff Avenue, where one of Dean's friends called in on somebody he knew while Dean and his other friend waited outside. As they stood there, they were approached by a group of males on mopeds, with one shouting something and brandishing what was described as a witness as a handgun. Dean and his friend fled, but Dean was caught up by the group and stabbed in the street. His attackers ran off, and although an ambulance was called, Dean died at the scene. A police search of the area found 3 knives that were believed to be used in the attack, with some DNA evidence found linking officers to Pussy. Inquiries also found mobile phone records showing a group of men in contact before Dean's murder that linked both Stewart and Pussy to the killing. Pussy was charged a month after presenting himself at Lewisham Police Station, while Stewart had fled the country to Jamaica. He was arrested at Gatwick on his return in November and charged the next day. Detective Chief Inspector Richard Leonard, who led the investigation, said, "I honestly believe that Dean was not the intended target of this group of males. He did not live in Mottingham area, and for all we know, he had no associations with the locality. However, it appears the defendants were involved in a dispute with Dean's friends, and they attacked Dean merely because he was with them that day."
Man's out on your block with a skeng, tryna turn man zombies. And I got the zombie shank, I'm a zombie man when I bore through his hoodie. Murder one will be the outcome if you let the devil then boogie.
This was a brutal attack carried out in broad daylight in shock of residents. Dean simply didn't stand a chance. I can only hope today's sentencing can help his family to move on. The 2 other men were also convicted of Dean's murder and jailed last year. So the guy that they're talking about is called KK. K. Stewart is KK. He was only 18 years old. And KK was making a name for himself from being in a gang called Bside. Now, the reality is, when you're in a gang, you're gonna be told to do things that you might not want to do. But the reason you're gonna have to do it is because you're in that gang. And that's the bad thing of being in a gang. Sometimes you do things that morally you might not even think's right, like robbing old women's handbags. You might know that's wrong, but you still have to do it because you're in a gang, or you see it and you don't think it's wrong. The music producer that was killed, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I can tell you that as a fact. But you see, these streets are cruel. So if you're rolling with the bad people, know that bad stuff can happen to you. So my advice is stay away from anyone that you know that's involved in things that you don't want to be involved in. Because the truth is, it's not going to end up well for you. See, the prosecution alleged that the murder of Pascal had its roots in a poisonous feud between the Splash Gang and B-Side Gang, meaning that there was 2 gangs that were warring. 2 teenagers, Corey Donaldson and Alex Scott, both 18, were found guilty of stabbing Pascal to death after he got caught up in the gang feud. Jatel Williamson, 26, was also found guilty of murdering Pascal on October 20th, 2022. Wilson was brought from the US to face the music last year. He was sentenced to life in prison. So there's a couple people that went down for this murder. It wasn't just 2, it was a couple people that went down. And just for the information, what we can learn from the case of KK is that when you get involved in a gang from a young age, you're probably going to end up doing stuff that you're going to regret later on. You got 17 years at 18. Now, to a lot of people, he's going to come out when, let's say for argument's sake, when he's like in his 30s, and he wasted all that time of his life when he could be doing something positive and productive. And I know sitting in a cell sometimes, when you're sitting in that cell, you reflect over your life. But I genuinely believe that prison is the best place for some of these young men. Because if you're willing to just jump out and stab people up and get them down, then maybe that is the best place for you. Yeah, man, this is the story of KK. We'll be back with another one. Rare Talks.